Yeah, or that, I think everybody thinks they're the good guy. Even the Sith think they have it right.
My dear friends, we have so much to talk about. Oh my goodness. 2 new teasers for The Acolyte, one which I was able to break down with my good friend Diana Lee Inosanto. You know her from Mando, from Ahsoka, from Tales of the Empire, and we have a second one called Evolve. This is going to be a fun and hefty video, and if that wasn't enough, we've also got some new comments by Leslye Headland, which I'm not gonna lie, has gotten me more excited than most of these TV spots. But let's start with Evolve. This teaser trailer dropped last night, and it tells us quite a bit. So as you're probably aware, there are twins, Osha and May, and they're trying to confuse us as to which one is which. But we have some new stills of both sisters in the new TV spot, with some mind-blowing reveals. May has the Force, but she's not going to be just reliant on knives. She's going to wield a lightsaber. Now, while I stand by a lot of my theory to do with the sisters, some specifics may have been wrong, but now I have a final theory for you, and a clarity of vision.
I am the only one with clarity of purpose.
I no longer think both twins have the Force, or not at the start. They might end up being some kind of dyad, but the premise begins with only one sister having had that experience. That is a crucial difference I don't think we realized until this point, and some of her actions in this new teaser kind of imply it. May is a former Jedi turned to the dark side. She's become an assassin, a Sith acolyte. The inevitable question that comes from this is why? What is the reason? Is this an Anakin scenario, or is it more complex? Did she have a falling out with her master? Did she realize the ways of the Jedi are not as noble as they make themselves out to be? I think this is the route Leslye Headland is taking, and it goes back to what we spoke about in that very first trailer. That youngling who says that she sees fire is May. She was already prone to the dark side of the Force, and this could have caught the attention of a Sith or a Sith cultist. But for whatever reason, May has become corrupted by the dark side, and she is out for revenge. Her sister, Osha, goes looking for her. She is good. She is trying to stop May from what she's doing, which is how she gets caught up with the Jedi, how she ends up on Ahch-To, which we'll talk about in just a moment. She'd been on the mission to find this sister who turned to the dark side for a long time. Longer than May's been killing Jedi, and the frustrations of the Jedi that someone is murdering them. It's May who is the assassin and who ends up using the Force, and I think that Osha gets caught up in this whole conspiracy and ends up coming across some of the Jedi her sister killed, and I don't think her sister's been in contact with her since they were both kids in the Witch's Coven, but the full motivation of May is still unknown. I love the wording and the titles in this trailer because they're making it very clear it's got nothing to do with the Empire. This is 100 years before Episode 1, and they even write, before the Menace. And this distinction is going to become very important in just a moment, because Leslye Headland may have confirmed there is no plot hole, no canon inconsistency. The show explains why the Sith are believed to be extinct by the time of Episode 1. So they're not retconning it, but the dark side users in this show are not full-on Sith. And here's something that really took me aback. I didn't realize how brutal this show was going to be, but look at this shot. Kelnaka fighting Torbin because we think he's become possessed. Look at the fear in Torbin's face. We're going to see the power of a Wookiee combined with the fact they're a Jedi, and not just a Padawan like Gunji, a monkish, powerful Wookiee Jedi. That is amazing. Now, interestingly enough, in previous teaser trailers, May arrived on Ahch-To, but this time it's Osha. Does she find and follow her sister there? We also see the mysterious helmeted figure with his helmet on the ground. Has he been decapitated, or is this him revealing himself? It really is an investigative, film noir Jedi drama, and at the end, May is able to use the Force to pick up a lightsaber. She is trying to get the lightsabers of every Jedi she comes across, and we'll talk about this more in the second clip. But before we get into that, a bit of news. You guys know I'm still cautiously optimistic about this series. That is how I can best describe my mood. That being said, if there was ever to be a time where there was music to my ears, it'd be this. I may not agree with everything Leslye Headland has said, but this interview's really good. She sets out how they're not breaking canon, there's a reason the Jedi are so surprised the Sith have returned in Episode 1, and how the Force users in this show are probably nothing more than cultists, but they are Sith adjacent. The real Sith is in the shadows, and she alludes to characters around her this time she didn't want to mess with, and you've got to respect that. So let's dive into it. Here's what she said. The Acolyte explores a side of the Sith we've never seen before. There are certain things that happened in the prequels about the Sith and about Darth Maul, and the Jedi's understanding of them that I found intriguing. Qui-Gon on Tatooine immediately knows that Darth Maul is a Sith, and then reports to the Jedi Council. Yoda knows about the Rule of Two. He says there's always a master and an apprentice. So while they're considered extinct, there was a little bit of knowledge about the Sith that I felt would not have come from ancient history, but instead, it felt like it came from within the last 100 years. Now this is essential because we were wondering, why does Ki-Adi-Mundi think the Sith are extinct and have been for millennia if they encountered them in the Acolyte? Well, it turns out the dark side Force users in this show give the Jedi reason to believe they're not full Sith. They could be a clumsy cult. Maybe there is a Sith Lord in the shadows, but we don't see them, so no canon is broken, and I think that is the biggest takeaway from all of this. And then she admits something enormous. I really toyed with using Darth Bane, or mentioning Bane. And even though Bane was long ago, she's talking about the Rule of Two, and she goes on to say this: we do not use it in the first season, but it's obviously the legacy of these practitioners of the dark side. While we don't get into that specific lore, there were some things in Legends I wanted to drag out, because I felt like they were very interesting, not only in the storyline, but to myself as a fan, and I thought I'd love to do that. And she also references one of the most interesting characters with the most interesting philosophy from Knights of the Old Republic 2, Kreia, or should I say, Darth Treya. Her character is complex, a character who ultimately wanted to destroy the influence of the Force. The Force to her is inherently evil. Her morality, her teachings, all make for very fascinating influence on a show like this. She believed the Force ruled the galaxy on a whim, orchestrating wars on a monolithic scale, leaving trillions to die in the crossfire over the millennia. She uses the events that nearly destroyed Malachor to make her point. So I'm curious to see how this plays into the Acolyte. Now here's another big reveal from Leslye Headland. Don't expect legacy characters like Yoda. She said while it was tempting, she used this era because there are so few Jedi who we know. So it really is separate from the Skywalker saga, and while Yoda might be referenced, mentioned by name, I don't think we're going to see the likes of him, Opera Ancisis, Yarael Poof, or even my favourite, Yaddle. Of all the articles, of all the trailers and teasers, this has really captured my attention. And on top of this update, my dear friends, we have a new extended clip, no lightsabers, between May and Jedi Master Sol, played by Lee Jung-jae. I was able to react with my good friend, the amazing Diana Lee Inosanto. And since she is a martial arts expert, here's what she had to say. You are a martial arts expert.
Many different systems. My dad created almost this university system at his school. So he always pays tribute to all the different styles and systems, whether they're European, whether from Asia, from Africa. He's tried to help put different martial arts on the map and give it exposure. Yeah. So
that's awesome.
Yeah.
And Amanda Stenberg, who plays this assassin, she was saying how the series is martial arts based and oriented around Wing Chun, which is a South Chinese martial art form. Could you tell us maybe a bit about that?
Well, Wing Chun, because I was curious to know who the choreographers for. So Wing Chun is actually created, interesting enough, thousands of years ago by a female nun in China. And actually, that was one of the core bases for my godfather's system. Uncle Bruce Lee, I used to love it because he would say to my dad, well, she's going to be America's Wing Chun. So that's really cool. They're saying Wing Chun. It's a great system. And yeah, that's really cool. And that I'm discovering now. I didn't even know that. I'm looking, I had heard that there was going to be a lot of empty hand stuff, but that's very cool. Yeah.
Do you want to react to this together and you can tell me?
Beautiful.
Attack me without a weapon.
Ooh. Oh, nice. Ah, surprise.
So, what do you think of that?
Oh, it's great. It looks like they have some wushu in this too as well. So that's beautiful. Yeah, I cannot wait to find out who are the choreographers behind the scene. So
I've been a bit on the fence with, because, we don't know too much about this era, and I've been excited for like the Sith element, but then you see the choreography and you realize I think that's going to be the point which gets fans excited. And they were able to do this in this scene with no lightsabers.
yeah, I'm so excited. That's incredible. Yeah, I'm excited about the martial arts and the fact that they're demonstrating empty hand without the weaponry, right? Or they have knives too. I saw in the trailers before the knife element. I'm like, oh, this is really interesting because I trained in Filipino martial arts, and that there's a lot of knives. They treat knife self-defense like the way, like in European sword work. That it in itself is a form, an art form, to learn. And so fascinating, just fascinating. So I can't wait to find out who was the team. Just beautiful.
It's awesome. And are you a fan of the Sith? Are the Sith an aspect that interests you more? Or are you more of the Jedi?
Ooh, good question. I think as a kid, yeah, I wanted to be a Jedi, but as I've gotten older, there is something fascinating about the Sith. Yeah, or that I think everybody thinks they're the good guy. Even the Sith think they have it right. It's just that it's a conflict of philosophical ideas, and also what drives some of these individual characters. Even like I think about Rey's character with Balin. He's a really cool character, right? And yet, is he dark or is he light? Or is there's that weird, strange element of he's in this kind of gray zone? Same thing with Shin, and I miss Rey, and I wish we knew what he was going to do with the character next. And I am curious to know how they're going to resolve all this. But meanwhile, with Acolyte, yeah, I'm just as curious, and I'm learning like you are too, Meg, about where is this going to go.